It's time for Grand Prix qualifying in Miami. For only the 5th time, our venue is Miami International Autodrome. The 4th round of the Formula One World Championship in 2026 continues right here, right now. And after the sprint race, we are setting the grid for the Grand Prix tomorrow after the competitive picture has changed this weekend. We snake our way around the Hard Rock Stadium, 5.4 kilometers, 3.3 miles, nothing by way of elevation. There's some interesting corners and big risks being taken in the sprint, especially towards the end. You've got the overtake mode detection point, it's before the braking zone at turn 17. Soft, the medium and the hard tyre available for all in the field. That's always the case. The difference this week, the C5, the C4 and the C3. Big variations between the compounds. Remember how good Ferrari looked on the medium in sprint qualifying before they used the soft. Well, today we are using those soft tyres from the outset as we set the grid for the 4th Grand Prix of the year and our first in 5 weeks. Within those 5 weeks, there was no mandated shutdown period for the teams like we get in the August summer break. And we've seen Ferrari looking very strong. We've seen McLaren back to the front of the field. Mercedes now officially beaten in 2 consecutive sessions. Lando Norris, who won the sprint race earlier, making the point that he had clear air, but he was very pleased with how his race came together. It's one thing to do it in the sprint. Now it's about giving yourself the best opportunity to take the 25 points tomorrow in the Grand Prix. In the commentary box, I'm Alex Shakes. Alongside me once again is Jolyon Palmer.
Once again, really looking forward to this. And what a shake-up it's been. It feels like we've had so much drama this weekend and we haven't even started Grand Prix qualifying. McLaren have flipped the script so far. Norris was quickest yesterday to the tune of a couple of tenths, and it just seems very, very hooked up. It's different today. The sessions are a little bit longer. You're running the soft tyres, as you said, from the start. So the rivals, Mercedes and Ferrari, both thought they left a bit more on the table on those softs. So now McLaren are the team to beat. Can anyone get closer to Norris, who seems to have a bit of an advantage over Oscar as well so far this weekend? This
is a circuit that Lando Norris is really coming to enjoy. It's a newer addition to the Formula One World Championship. First racing here in 2022. DC, did you have a classic venue where you always seemed, no matter what the regulations said, no matter what the season, you always went well?
Yeah, and that is the funny thing, actually, as we look at the Antonelli's car there, Russell on the right. Russell had declared that this isn't really a track that he enjoys, and I think it becomes a sort of, a little, mountain that comes out of the molehill, isn't it? You've got to take every track at its potential and exploit it to the best of your ability. But to answer your question, I was always pretty good on circuits where there was big stops into like hairpins or chicanes.
Like a Manicourt, you're always great at
Magny-Cours, Monza with the chicanes, we had a lot more care popping back in the day, Montreal, Imola, places like that. Places where they were more difficult to sort of judge where the limit was. I found that tricky. So the flip side was somewhere like a Monte Carlo, I was always pretty good because the limit is clearly defined by a barrier and it doesn't move. But I don't know, Jolyon, were you a sort of man of all circuits, or did you have a track that stood out for you?
Oh, no, I certainly had a few more that I would like to enjoy or like to turn up to than others. Budapest was one for me that for some reason it just clicked. It's a niche circuit.
It was a tough track.
But you don't have a lot of thinking time, do you, around there? A little bit like Monaco, where you start the lap and then your next thing is just corner after corner after corner without the big thinking, the big stops. And then other circuits, like Spa was never one that a great circuit, loved racing there, wasn't particularly good. But then I did have one of my best ever weekends there in Formula One. So you can flip the script on that one as well pretty quickly.
Okay, big queue awaiting at the end of the pit lane. It is nearly time for qualifying for the Grand Prix. A green light illuminates at the end of the pit lane, and the sound of V6 turbocharged engines will reverberate around the Hard Rock Stadium and the International Autodrome here as we get things going once again. A full 18 minutes put on the clock, the traditional qualifying hour, and Cadillac on home soil. Another team that have brought a raft of updates, another team taking a step forward on the evidence, tried something different on the hard tyre with Sergio Perez earlier on in the sprint race.
I heard that Kimi Antonelli had already in some interviews been saying, yeah, he's thinking about the World Championship, which I mentioned that ahead of this qualifying session for the Grand Prix. It feels early. We get so used to drivers sort of dismissing anything that's a distraction from the here and now by going, yeah, look, I'm focused on the weekend. but maybe it's just the fresh youthfulness of him that he goes, yeah, I'm thinking about the world title.
I kind of like the honesty. He's championship leader, so I think it'd be kind of lying to everyone if he said he wasn't. Of course, that's the typical spoken words of people in championship fights. You know, there's a long way to go. We've still got 18 races and this and that. But he is championship leader. He has been in the fastest car so far this year. He's on form this weekend, where he's been quick last year as well. So I quite like that he's like, yeah, I'm thinking about it. Yeah. But it doesn't change the here and now, does it? You can think about it, but still think, okay, because I'm thinking of the championship, I need to go out and nail this qualifying.
Yeah, there have been a few changes for him, leading a world championship. He's moved out from home. He's no longer living with his parents. So we all remember the excitement of having your independence. The only difference is he hasn't gone from home to living in student accommodation. He's probably living in a multi-millionaire penthouse somewhere in Milan.
Yeah, it's not a bad life for our championship leader. Growing up in the eyes of the world, you got a flash down there in the garage of Gabriel Bortoleto, who's disqualified from the sprint race earlier on. The technical regulations, the air pressure outside the parameters of the tech regs, and he was chucked out of the classification. He didn't score points, so it doesn't affect things, but not an easy start to the day for Audi, who had Hulkenberg break down, and then they broke the tech rules by mistake.
Yeah, the baking hot temperatures seem to be a major factor in that for Audi. So on both counts, on the DNF and then the exclusion for Bortoleto, it's going to be a fascinating one. Even talking the championship, and everyone in the paddock is now thinking, we were all saying that this is George v Kimi, and who knows, maybe Charles Leclerc's not miles away now. Lando Norris on form. Oscar's shown that when the car's working, he's quick. There's a long way to go. Maybe it's not just the Mercedes, but when you are thinking it's Mercedes, and Kimi's saying, I'm thinking of maybe championship somewhere in the back of his mind, giving away those points earlier on feels like something that the person thinking of the championship wouldn't do. You know, you think play it safe if you are thinking about it. Don't run into someone at turn one, be a little bit more cautious there. If you're on a black and white flag, just be a little bit safe with track limits and those sort of things. They're risks that championship contenders can't usually take.
I love this camera angle. Puts you in the cockpit. You see the sort of buffeting on the helmet of the driver as he gets down into the braking zone. And I think that we can say this has been a reasonable, as he fights the wheel, as he's putting the power down, running for the line. It's been a reasonable Grand Prix for Cadillac in their first showing on home soil.
Perez is quite impressive, I think, at the moment. Reasonable for Cadillac, but certainly for Perez. And even on that first lap, he's gone 6/10 quicker than Bottas. And generally this year has been looking like he's a little bit stronger. And when you are a Cadillac, as Alex Albon rejoining the circuit, having overcooked it into 11, when you are a Cadillac, or you're an Aston Martin at the moment, or probably a Williams, it's that teammate comparison that's important as well.
It's the constant comparison, isn't it? It's the one that matters above all else. How do you qualifying stats with your teammate, points, of course. It's what all of the other teams will reference, all the managers will use when they go out into the marketplace.
Wide moment for Alex Albon in turn 11. Some drivers have reported a tailwind into turn 11, so maybe that catching out the Thai driver as he made his way through that corner. Teammate comparison on run number 1, Behrman half a second up on Esteban Ocon. There's been a fix for Nico Hulkenberg, who had an technical issue earlier on and wasn't able to take the starts. He's on the medium tyres at the moment. Red Bull are another team to have brought plenty of updates, very aggressive side pods on the Red Bull. And Max Verstappen seemed a bit happier, seemed a bit more aggressive. And again, that margin to Isaac Hadjar, which had come way down in comparison to the average against his teammates in the opening rounds of the year. First effort, 0.8 of a second, the gap. Here come the Ferraris.
Yeah, and Justin, you mentioned that as Charles Leclerc pops in 0.3 away from Verstappen's opening time. This actually will be the sort of making or breaking of Hadjar. That reality of having a big gap to a teammate, how you deal with that. Clearly the car's improved and given Max the confidence to start leaning on it as Norris. There you go. It's quite interesting to see that Max's time stands, as normally you'll get a bit of track evolution. We're definitely going to see that during the session. But Julian, I think you can absolutely relate to this. If you're a tenth away from your teammate, you can work on that. If you're like half a second, that becomes uncomfortable. And I know it's only one weekend, but that's where we'll find out whether Hadjar can take the pressure.
And he's been bemused as to how the gap is so big this weekend, as you rightfully would if the gap is this big. 9/10, about a second yesterday. It's huge gaps. Obviously, Max has demolished teammates for fun in recent years, and for the first few races, he's not been happy. He's not been in any sort of harmony with the Red Bull that's not working for him. They've bought a big upgrade package on both cars, but Max is suddenly coming alive with it, isn't he? And he's able to showcase his talents that we've seen for years now. And Isaac's, I think, having his eyes opened this weekend so far as to, oh, okay, life is not how it's been the first 3 races when you're alongside Max. This is more like how it is. The time loss in qualifying yesterday was across the board. There wasn't any magic moment where, he lost half a second suddenly. It was tenths here, tenths there, which is worst case because it's, how do I go quicker? It's a little bit everywhere around 5.3 kilometers. You want to find you're locking the brakes too much. You need to do one specific thing and then you'll be good. But when it's a little bit everywhere, you're like, oh, this is just inherently in me. I need to go quicker everywhere, which is such a tough thing to try and do.
On board with Oscar Piastri, second earlier on in the sprint race. It's Verstappen, Norris, Leclerc, Hamilton and Isaac Hadjar. Then it's Behrman, Ocon, Lindblad, Hulkenberg, Alonso, Perez, Stroll, Sainz and Valtteri Bottas is the last driver to put a time on the board. Middle sector, Antonelli is stacking up nicely against Verstappen. A reminder for you that the teams have been able to reset in terms of the setup, take everything that they've learnt from the sprint race and apply it to the setup of the cars right now. Piastri over the line, and he's 9/10 of a second away.
There's a headwind then into that final braking zone. So actually, Oscar, when he hit the brakes there, would have felt the car slowing down that little bit quicker. You got loads of downforce on, and he actually nibbled the apex curve because he just decelerated a little bit quicker and had the car fully under control. Yesterday, they were launching it a bit more aggressively there. With the tailwind, I can tell you from being in the pit lane, it's gusty down towards turn 1 and equally down to 11 where Albon went straight on. So these early laps are recalibration times. This is going to be Albon going on at 11 then, first lap.
Yeah, that wasn't a minor lock-up. That was a major lock-up, which, as you mentioned earlier, Alex, that could be the tailwind. And then Carlos Sainz, his teammate, down into turn 1 as well. So, well...
That's a major, isn't it? Double front lock-up. It's bumpy there as well. And they're the 2 corners where you have got the tailwind. So not only you arrive a little bit quicker because you've got a tailwind, but then you've got less downforce on the car. So it's so easy to do that. Williams struggling with various characteristics on their car as well, maybe a little bit more prone to the lock-up than others.
Liam Lawson being compared to Carlos Sainz because he's yet to put a time on the board. Verstappen, Antonelli and Norris have. They are separated, the top 3, by 0.08 of a second. And we've gone from Mercedes domination to multi-team, multi-driver battles at the front. Only Q1, and we're going to lose 6 drivers in about 9 minutes' time. 8 minutes and 45 seconds to go. Lawson about to put a time on the board. Team that's been chasing it so far this weekend. It's not been an easy couple of sessions for Racing Bulls, and cars peeling off the racing line in front of Liam Lawson there. Slightly distracting, but not in his way. The meaningful corners are done, so let's see where the New Zealander can go. Driver 10th in the World Championship going into this. Nice lap to put him ahead of Hadjar and Piastri and Russell. P6 for Lawson.
Yep, nice and tidy, able to get the car rotated towards end of lap at 17, and he'll be happy with that opening time. We're going to see some evolution, which remains to be seen whether any of the big names will feel the need to go again. I don't really think they'd be under any pressure this early part of Quali, but certainly you want to be able to get yourself within a second of the fastest to feel comfortable about making it through to the next part of qualifying.
Bortoleto remains in the pits, so the driver disqualified from the sprint, not taking to the circuit at the moment. Still yet to head out there. Worth saying that Piastri and Russell set their times on old tyres.
The whole front bunch basically have to at this stage. They've only got 4 new sets of soft tyres if you used a set yesterday in SQ3. So if you didn't make it in the top 10 yesterday, you got an extra set to use today. So all of those front times are on a scrub set, and then you don't know how scrubbed they are as well. I mean, probably one flying lap, but how much have you taken out of them on that lap? Albon's laid down a marker that will get Piastri and Russell and co thinking, because that's a car that has struggled to make it into Q2, and he's very close to the McLaren and the Mercedes. And look at Behrman, look at Lawson, look at Hulkenberg. They've all got to go again because the track is ramping up.
Fernando Alonso ahead of Lance Stroll, ahead of the Cadillacs. No time on the board yet for the Alpine drivers. Both of them did make SQ3 yesterday, so they're going later at the end. And we still have Gabriel Bortoleto in the garage. Bottas in 19th. Here comes Pierre Gasly, a driver who now has 4-point scoring finishes so far this year. He's only missed the points on one occasion. That was the sprint race in China. So got past his teammate in the opening lap, opening corners of the opening lap. And this is his first effort in Q1. French driver over the line for the French team, and he goes into P12 ahead of the Williams pair.
Yeah, it does feel, I know there's big track evolution, which is absolutely normal on a facility like this, but it does feel we're definitely seeing the fruits of the changes that have been made during the break, the coming together of FIA, Formula One, the teams. Yes, we know the circuit puts less demand on the challenge of harvesting, but it just visually looks better, doesn't it? It feels better, Julian.
They're able to harvest energy much better anyway around here because of the big braking zones, and that's what these cars really want. So you're not having to do too much work on the way into the corners or on the straights. And then just tweaks to the regulations have tidied that up as well, as you say. It certainly looks better. The race as well earlier on, you know, this is looking much more like Formula One as we've known it in recent years, and less about an energy management juggle, which is good to see. The drivers are very happy as well so far this weekend with the tweaks that have been made.
It was good to see actually how hot and sweaty the drivers were after the sprint as well. They're working for it out there.
Antonelli he looked exhausted.
Yeah, difficult to tell the difference between his suit and his face. You know, wearing a purple sort of celebration Miami suit here, aren't they?
Yeah, a 30-minute race as well. I mean, it was baking earlier on. It feels like maybe the breeze is at least a little bit nicer for us standing out there now. But if it is hot and similar tomorrow, it's meant to be a little bit cooler, and there's a good threat of rain and more tomorrow. But there's a good test, not only for the drivers, but for the cars as well.
The air temperature is 33 degrees. The track temperature is 52. But, as Julian says, that the wind has increased. So even though the temperature is up, so is the wind as well. So it's not quite as oppressive out there around this layout. Used since 2022. Been furious work in the Audi garage to get Gabriel Bortoleto into the session. Russell being told on the radio that he needs this lap, driver in 12th position.
So does Piastri. So these are the two big hitters now that are 11th and 12th and need to improve. If they don't, there will be everyone behind sticking on new tyres, and that is a beatable time that Oscar's set, and thus George just behind him. They've gone for another used set, so I was wondering if they're going to have to burn through one of their 4 new sets, but they've gone a little bit risky with that. It should be enough because there's massive gaps to those top 3 drivers, all on used tyres as well, but they've not pulled the ejector at this point and chucked on a new tyre. They've thought, no, you can still do it on a used.
Yeah, they haven't panicked. They have confidence in the underlying pace and the driver's ability to drive a clean lap. But there's some key corners around this track where new tyres just will unleash performance. That opening sector, when you're leaning on it at high speed, you know, some of those corners where you're having to feather out of the power. You see traction as he's in the middle of the lap there, coming out of the long turn 12, dropping it into this little Mickey Mouse 14, 15. He looked pretty good there earlier, it has to be said, when we were on the onboard. And then how close does he go to the wall? Well, not taking too much of a risk as he sends it down the back straight.
It's not terrific for Piastri, 7/10 away, so he's still got plenty to do on this final corner. Russell's going quicker in the first sector. Antonelli, you can see, is the fastest man of anyone, but that is a new tyre because he saved a set in practice. Remember, he had an issue at the end of practice, so Antonelli is not in the same boat as everyone else.
Okay, Russell at turn 16. Piastri completing the lap, and Piastri finds himself in 11th. No improvement, sector 2, sector 3. And there are others not too far away.
So the threat is going to be Williams and Racing Bulls. Cadillac and Aston Martin I'd expect to be stuck in that bottom 6. Bortoletto's now made it out and is on an outlap. So can you get a Williams, a Lindblad, a Lawson, In fact, Lawson's already ahead. Russell now jumps well out of danger. So Piastri now is going to be looking over his shoulder, and you can see the list of everyone else behind on outlaps, on new tyres ready to improve.
Nice time from Kimi Antonelli. He is now top with 2 minutes to go. It's a 1:28.653. Lindblad, Alonso, Stroll, Perez, Bottas and Audi, who are congratulating themselves down in the garage because they've made big changes to the car and they have got Bortoleto onto an outlap. The driver who was lining up in 11th position for sprint qualifying and 11th on the grid for the contest finds himself cruising out there with at least a chance, and he'll go attacking in about a corner's time when he gets to the end of the back straight, and they're all fighting over track position right now.
Now, he was waiting for this gaggle of cars, and then he's found out that they're all waiting as well. So this is going to compromise someone's launch into the lap, and his tyres are definitely going to be well, it looks like he's just cruising it.
He's waiting. I think he's going to still wind it up. Is he at the line?
Yeah, but that's just going to lose you time on the run, the first corner.
Short run, and it saves you energy at the moment, so that is exactly what he's doing. I think he's waited. He doesn't have a time to go round again, so now he's leaning on it. This is his first lap of the session, though, so he's got to figure it all out, whereas everyone else has had at least one run so far.
Yeah, quirk of the new regulations. It still looks very, very strange to see a driver crawl to the line. Final minute, so Lindblad trying to avoid the drop zone. Alonso, Stroll, Perez and Bottas, they would be expecting that, so not much for them to lose. They can go fully attacking now, and Bortoleto trying to reward his mechanics who have been working furiously for the last hour.
So Gasly improves and goes ahead of Piastri. That's one more for Oscar to fall down. He's just started another lap though, Oscar. He's got time, but he's got pretty used tyres now. And in these temperatures, the softs are barely going to last again, I would have thought.
And currently behind Piastri, but trying to heat the pressure on. Personal best for Albon, Sainz and Ocon through the first corner. Through the first sector, I should say.
Bortoleto's not super quick, though, at this stage. What's he like compared to Ocon? No, he's absolutely nowhere, in fact, Bortoleto. Lawson improves, but was already, I think, ahead of Piastri.
Lindblad not too far away from Esteban Ocon, but not in touching distance of Oscar Piastri, who's tumbling down. Ocon improves. Good time for him.
Yeah, Albon's jumped up as well, so this is now really, really sweaty for Piastri. Sainz is ahead.
Big lap for Carlos Sainz. Piastri on the brink here, and Lindblad was in touching distance of Ocon. He's the danger man for Oscar Piastri, and he comes over the line and he misses out by 9/100ths of a second. How close was that for Oscar Piastri, as Fernando Alonso fighting it, but fighting it all the way back to the pits. The Aston Martin does not have the pace.
Yeah, look, he was just burning rubber in acceleration off last corner, then flat spotting the tyres into the pit lane. Not a happy bunny.
Oscar Piastri forced to continue there. The checkered flag waves, and Piastri has scraped through. Would have been an almighty shock. Last year's winner of the Miami Grand Prix is through to the next part of qualifying, but by fine margins. Bottas out-qualifies his teammate Sergio Perez. Audi fixed the car, but Bortoleto didn't have enough time to get a competitive lap time in, and Lindblad falls a 10th away from knocking out Oscar Piastri. Tight margins, but still in qualifying contention. The man who finished second earlier on.
It was a brave call not to throw on the new tyres. It should have been easily fine. Look at the gap from Piastri to Norris. There's 7/10 between them, but Oscar's just not finding the grip on the scrub tyres, and he, like Zach Brown, I think, will be breathing a heavy sigh of relief that Arvid Lindblad has got a bit of a gap to Lawson. Not an easy weekend for Lindblad.
There's a big lock-up here for Fernando Alonso coming into the pits.
Yeah, I think this is just a frustration, isn't it? He's gunned it out of the final corner, gunned it into pit lane entry, which, you know, typically, as we see a rear brake fire there on Bortoleto's car, so the brake by wire not releasing.
Speed 22.
My brakes are on fire, man.
Cool the brakes.
I'm trying.
Dropping debris as the carbon that surrounds the brake drum internally on that wheel will start to delaminate, and you see those little bits of carbon fiber falling on the racetrack. He needs to really find a fire marshal.
They patched that car up really quickly, didn't they? Managed to get him out. We're happy down in the garage, but he wasn't happy at all in that lap. Tried to fire it up for it, but the performance was never coming. Obviously realised something wasn't right.
Yeah, parking up by the marshals, who will spring into action.
Well, spring is not really the word I would be using for this right now, but thankfully they're there.
Yeah, putting out the fire, the marshals that surround the circuit. Out in the first part of qualifying, Lindblad, Alonso, Stroll, Bottas, Perez, and what remains of Gabriel Bortoletto's car. Oscar Piastri just scraping by.
Yeah, his engineer and him will be going, phew, okay, right, well, that was a bit uncomfortable.
I almost think you can see it in his eyes, the wide-eyed whoop. Yeah. Let's not do that again, please. And he'll be, grateful that Bortoletto did have issues in the Audi, because that car's been quick enough to trouble the top 10.
Roscoe, we're safely through.
Safely is an ambitious word in that situation, I think.
There was our reaction in the commentary box as well.
Never in doubt, guys, never in doubt.
Oscar Piastri verbalising that immediately. Hey, P16, the times get reset, and he will be very grateful for his new Pirelli rubber in Q2.
So we have another couple of sessions of this qualifying to go, but I think there's some encouraging signs again. The Astons were only 2.5 seconds away from the fastest time set by Antonelli on the new set of tyres. That's a step forward for them as well. So we've come off the back of a golden era of Formula One where the whole grid was covered by a second. So it was always going to be a little bit more challenging, but there's some big progress made from back to front.
Yeah, been aggressive development to close up the field, and you're seeing Gabriel Bortoletto, who will start at the back, and he was 5 seconds off, and the brake fire for him. He parked up before he got back to the pits, and he is out. Arvid Lindblad, Fernando Alonso, Lance Stroll, Valtteri Bottas, Sergio Perez, and Gabriel Bortoletto are out in the first part of qualifying. Oscar Piastri scraping through using old tyres, but getting by. And the great atmosphere continues here at Miami International Autodrome. Fastest in that session, Kimi Antonelli. But Ruth Buscombe, something confused you about Mercedes and their approach to Q1.
Well, I wouldn't have used the new tyres, Jake C, because strategy matters in SQ1. So, real big split. We have the teams that are expecting to have to fight to get out of the qualifying session, the first one, using 3 sets of brand new tyres. Now, how do we calculate a cutoff? We work out who we think is definitely going to be slower than us. And unfortunately, right now, that is going to be the 2 Astons, the 2 Cadillacs. So what we're looking for is what's the expected pace of the next 2 slowest cars. All eyes were on that Audi garage to see if they were going to get that car out, because it changes the cutoff. As soon as that car's out on track, we're then looking at what's the next expected slowest car. It's potentially going to be one like a character like Lindblad. Now, what do the big teams do? They go out on a used set of tyres, not because they don't have rubber left in the garage, but because they want to save it for the later sessions. 2 bites at the apple in Q3 is going to give you a much better chance of pole position. You get to practice your tyre management, your energy deployment, all of it. So they all tried to get through. All of our 8 cars in McLaren, Mercedes, Red Bull and Ferrari. Max didn't go out again, set that 29.099 and stayed parked. But what was really interesting for me was Antonelli set an amazing time. He was 29.1. We had the cut-off at around a 1:30, and McLaren went out unused. Antonelli spent one of his new tyres.
Thank you, Ruth. Good atmosphere around the circuit continues. Old and young enjoying the sunshine. The air temperature 33 degrees, but a bit of a breeze as well. Not enough for that, gentlemen. It is still very, very warm in the sun. At the front, Antonelli, Leclerc, Verstappen, Norris and Hadjar were our top 5. The drivers knocked out in that first part of qualifying: Lindblad, Alonso, Stroll, Bottas, Perez and Bortoletto, who had the brake fire at the end of the session, and that is why we have a delay to the start of Q2.
Cadillac ended up, I mean, I was eulogising about them this time yesterday, getting close, but they've gone a lot slower today. with Perez particularly, who's ended up behind Bottas, and they've ended up Checo 7/10 slower today than he was in qualifying yesterday on a medium tyre. So probably it's a sign of a team bringing new parts of the car, making some changes, and trying to find even more time, and they've gone in the wrong direction there. But whilst Aston Martin finding a little bit, you've got Cadillac now rooted to the back, minus Bortoletto.
They are an enthusiastic crowd here, aren't they? We've got to give them that. And it's great to see everyone having their own personal parties around the racetrack. And, well, he's having a party in the cockpit, isn't he? He did a great job in that session. And bright future ahead for Behrman, no question.
Okay, the message there from race control. Q2 will start at 29 minutes past local time. And 2.5 minutes if you're watching on catch-up, and you can skip ahead. And before we get to that section of qualifying, we can enjoy an onboard lap now in the company of James Hinchcliffe. Over to you, Hitch.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. I mean, we talked about Oscar Piastri getting not so safely through, so let's take a look and see if there's anything obvious that happens to the McLaren driver around this lap. Heading down into turn one, rather, we saw a little bit of different deployment strategies from some of the cars approaching the line to start the lap yesterday in sprint qualifying, but so far, so good, pretty clean, pretty neat as he blasts now up into these S's section. You're not seeing anything too dramatic from the McLaren. The balance looks pretty solid through here. The car placement is very good. You don't see a massive imbalance, maybe not using as much track on entry, and then as a result, very wide into turn 8. That will have been a time loss for sure, and a terrible place on the racetrack to have it, just because it leads to this long flat-out run down to turn 11, likely losing time the whole way down the straight, unless he got a bit punchy with the deployment button to try to make up for a bit of a worse exit. Down into 11 again, gets to the apex, seems all right. Front end working through this long right-hander, bit of oversteer. That's going to cost you again. These tiny little bits all add up over a lap like this through these slow sections. This is where the McLaren was so strong yesterday in the hands of Lando Norris. Now, power down, looks strong, looks solid. Is he deploying more on the back straight than he did out of the front straight? I gotta be honest, the balance of this car, the grip level looks not too bad. There's no obvious mistakes as we come down to the final corner other than what we saw there into turn 8. Gets to the apex, little bit of correction on the power, getting that horsepower down. The Pirelli's hanging on seemingly for the lap. So whether it was just grip on that used tire, couldn't quite fire it up the way he wanted to, was not the lap he wanted, but luckily he gets a chance to throw on some new boots and give it another whirl.
Thank you, James. Appreciate the insight of the onboard lap there that just carries Oscar Piastri into the second part of qualifying. We'll have Piastri, Gasly, Ocon, Albon, Hulkenberg, Lawson, Colapinto, Sainz, Russell, Hamilton, Behrman, Hadjar, Norris, Verstappen, Leclerc, and Antonelli. Green light at the end of the pit lane. Let's get Q2 underway. The Red Bull's heading out first.
And another chance to say well done to Williams, who have clearly made a good step. Both cars in Q2. Sainz, in fact, in the top 10 in that session as well. So maybe with a long shot of a Q3 attempt, but points in the offing potentially this weekend. The upgrade's working well.
Yeah, it's a good shout. They've referenced the fact that they took an opportunity to take one of those slimming jabs during the break, and they've taken some weight out of the car. And yeah, obviously brought some performance as well. So it's good, isn't it? Williams are a well-liked historic team in the paddock, but past performance, no guarantee of future success and all that. But I think that we'd all like to see Sainz and Albon have a crack at getting a bit further up the field.
Yeah, that will be their aim. James Vowles talking in the team principals press conference on Friday about the need to not only take the weight out of the car so they could easily develop the car lighter, but also to find the performance, because as we've seen across the board, a lot of the updates have worked for multiple teams, certainly for McLaren on the evidence that we saw earlier on, but Red Bull look a lot happier in comparison to the rounds in China and Japan. And so Williams know that they've got to shed the weight and also find the performance at exactly the same time.
And James Vowles saying they kind of shed the weight on paper, but now they just need to put it into practice, but it's signs that things will get better for Williams, and they've got it all in the pipeline coming. And I think this is really positive that they've bought a decent upgrade, and it translates well to Q2 appearances. Let's see how close they can get to the top 10. New tyres now on those that qualified in SQ3 yesterday, so the benchmark will move on. Antonelli had that extra set, remember, because he didn't use it at the end of practice. He had a power unit issue, so he used that set at the first part of qualifying, but that was a bonus for him.
This is a great opportunity to see the hands of a champion at work. Almost looks like a light grip on that steering as he navigates his way through the first sequence of high-speed turns. He's got Lawson ahead of him in the sister team. You're just going to see him appear getting well out of the way, so it doesn't affect the line in prep. Corners like that are quite tricky, aren't they, Julian? Because you're braking and turning at the same time. So you just, basically the turning circle doesn't allow you to maximize one or the other.
It's a really difficult corner sequence, that. In fact, it's all like a roller coaster ride. You can see it nicely on board with visor cam, 4-5, and then it pitches you into that turn 6. And yeah, you're braking and turning, scrubbing speed, and then you've got to keep it on the road before trying to slow it down and get your exit. So you're then accelerating and turning. And all of that is what these Pirelli tyres don't enjoy doing. As soon as you're driving in a straight line, things get a lot easier.
Yeah, well, Hadjar in the sister Red Bull is just over a tenth quicker in the first sector, matching Verstappen in the middle. So he's had the opportunity to look at the data, understand where Verstappen was a bit quicker, and presumably getting more comfortable as the session goes on with the balance of the car.
He did throw another new set of tyres on as well, Hadjar, and he's burnt through an extra set. Verstappen's not particularly happy, though. This is a new set of boots, but he's actually not thinking there's a lot more grip, and he's only 1/10 quicker than he was earlier on the used.
Not finding the step that he was expecting from brand new Pirelli rubber. A lot of oversteer on the exit of the corner for Hulkenberg. It's Verstappen, 100th ahead of Hadjar, and Hulkenberg 9/10 off the back of those two. First runs coming in now in the second part of qualifying.
Yesterday's benchmark from Lando Norris was a 127.8, so we're still more than a second away from that. Maybe the wind direction will have made a difference, and certainly even just the gusty nature of the wind will have made a bit of a difference to that. But the rubber on the circuit should be going down, and it will grip up and at least get back towards a 27, you'd have thought. There we go, 28.5 for Leclerc.
Lewis Hamilton next over the line, fastest driver in the middle sector. He's not too far away. He goes ahead of his teammate Charles Leclerc. So Hamilton a bit of drift earlier on in the sprint race with a fine effort that takes him 0.06 of a second. It's Ferrari, Red Bull. And here is Lando Norris. Oh, correction off the road. And the end of the lap in the opening corners of the first sector.
Yeah, rode a little bit of the curb on the apex of the right, which is not unusual. But on that particular corner, whether it was just being a bit too adventurous or you could get gusting wind, of course, through that section. But either way, you had to correct and lift out, and that lap is no longer.
It was quite sparing on the left-hand side, wasn't it, at turn 4? But then the drivers are all cutting loads more of 5, so that wasn't an unusual line from Norris. But again, new tyres for him, and maybe they're just not yielding the grip that these guys that haven't put a new set of boots on so far in this session are expecting them to find.
Yeah, I think as you see Colapinto and Gasly within 0.6 of Hamilton's time, I think that shows that there's going to be a bit of circuit evolution here.
Hamilton, Leclerc, Piastri now into third, Verstappen in fourth, Hadjar in fifth, Colapinto again ahead of Gasly, and Antonelli ahead of everyone. Driver who took sprint pole here 1 year ago on the front row for the sprint race earlier on. Had the issue getting off the line, but Mercedes much better than we saw in sprint qualifying yesterday. Antonelli first, Hamilton second, Russell now into P3. Leclerc in fourth, Piastri in fifth. Lando Norris was asking whether he needed to go again. The team telling him to come back to the pits, and they will reset with Lando Norris. Also in the drop zone, Esteban Ocon, Nico Hulkenberg, Oliver Behrman, and the Williams pair of Albon ahead of Sainz. It's part of the reset for Lando Norris, who is now going slightly out of sequence. Team principal Andrea Stella in a fairly animated conversation there by his standards.
Yeah, well, in the
Zoomed
mix of
in
it-
data trace. Did you see that on his screen? What's
Yeah.
happened?
Yeah, well, they get the data not only, of course, for their own cars, but they get that analysis in performance in much more detail relative to the competitors. So, look, it counts. Every little bit of performance around this racetrack, and they'll be looking, right, okay, what did Antonelli do in his deployment there? Are they doing something different on their harvesting? Are they compromising somewhere in this high-speed section because they know they're going to gain more in other areas? And just because it's a Mercedes engine in the McLaren, they've got their own dedicated engineers. So there is a sort of, you call it Chinese walls, is that the appropriate expression, where there's no sort of transfer of information between the two teams, despite having the same power unit.
McLaren a customer team, Mercedes the works team, who have designed, built and developed this car. McLaren straight out of the box in practice and into sprint qualifying and into the sprint race. The best they have looked all season. And it's telling with the stat that you saw at the bottom of your screen a few moments ago. Lando Norris and the teammate head-to-head, 3-0 down against Oscar Piastri. He's lost a lot of time in various different sessions, had mechanical issues. This weekend, look to drive a transformed by the updates to that McLaren.
The McLaren that doesn't look that hooked up in this session so far. They look like they're with a furrowed brow there for Andrea Stella, not quite able to extract the same performance. Norris with an oversteer, Piastri with new tyres, still well adrift of the Ferraris and the Mercedes.
Yeah, well, look, the track evolves. Track temperature, 52.8. I think yesterday was at about 50 degrees, so warmer track temperature and a bit more gusty in the wind conditions. And, well, you've got to hope the ideal lap would be under a cloud with a still wind. It would just give you lap time.
Yeah, talking of the changes, temperature's gone up a little bit. Wind has definitely gone up. Most that we've had at any stage of the weekend. Applied inconsistently as well because of the Hard Rock Stadium in the middle, so it hits the car differently at different points. Also, though, after effectively just under 3 hours of running, teams have had a chance to take everything they've learned from the data and put those learnings back onto the car, and Mercedes seem to be in a much better situation as a result of it. Norris, this is his first lap that's going to count in the session, currently bottom of the pile, the world champion, having not put a clean lap together on his first run.
There's another new set of tyres. The car still looks nervous coming off that curb at 5. It looked difficult in towards turn 8 as well. And he's a quarter of a second down on Antonelli in the first sector, so let's visor cam him through 14 and 15 over the crest. Now traction is at a premium, turn 16's tricky.
He's all alone out on the racetrack, so out of sequence as well. Literally no one else on track as he goes through again another couple of tenths down. So looking like 4 tenths away, which is going to put him in that sort of Verstappen area.
He'll be comfortably through, but also not dialing himself in particularly well for a Q3 pole charge with this sort of pace. Let's see him across the line.
So Norris cuts the beam into 9th position. Time fell away there at the end. Was tracking on 4 tenths away from the benchmark, but in the end, very nearly 7 tenths away from Antonelli's effort.
Yeah, I wonder if he's experiencing what we heard from Verstappen, where despite having new tyres, it just isn't giving that new tyre performance and feeling. It happens occasionally, doesn't it? You know, it's one of those unexplained moments, but it's not something we've really heard the drivers talk a lot about this year.
There's kind of no logic to it whatsoever. Occasionally on a cooler day, you get a scrub tyre fired up a little bit. The shine of the new tyres, you see the Alpine leave there, it takes a bit of time to come in, but it's scorching today. The tyres should be firing up well, and then it's a case of keeping them in the window. And both Verstappen and Norris don't seem to have found a lot, and that's the second set of new tyres for Norris. He should be okay in terms of lap time because they're still 6 tenths back to the drop.
Why do I have their deployment out of 10-16?
The deployment looks correct. I think it's more the wind.
That's where it's a massive headwind, and
Yeah.
you feel it when you jump on board that they're going slower at that part.
Yeah, and that is one of the longest straights on the racetrack. So if he's come out of there, got the car all lined up, floored it, and it's a sort of tunneling effect. There's an overpass of the road, actually, that you see when we have the camera back at 16, which will give a sort of wind tunnel effect. So if he's just been unlucky with particularly strong gust of wind, then that race car, he would have felt a deceleration rather than an acceleration.
He didn't lose a heap of time compared to Antonelli there. It was basically a quarter of a second sector 1, quarter of a second sector 2, and then another little bit in sector 3. But the lap was already falling away from Norris from the start. So it looked okay on board. It looked like he had the traction that he actually didn't have yesterday so much, but he just not feeling that the car's pulling in quite the same manner. Getting reassurance from Will Joseph on the radio.
Yeah, Will Joseph advising him to have a couple of cool laps, as they say, and then he will go again. So Norris being kept out there, and the Ferraris really lost a lot of performance yesterday, going from the medium to the soft tyres. They seem to have mastered the soft tyres at this stage. Antonelli currently finding himself at top of the pile, going again, and Russell being informed that there are serious gusts out there in turn 11, which is the one that leads into the slightly slow single file in the racing section that we get, where the driver has to be neat and tidy for the fiddly chicane at 14 and 15. So the drivers will have that information, and we're going to get a good illustration of what that looks like at the moment. Kimi Antonelli heading down to turn 11.
Car looked really good on the exit of turn 8, almost like the rear was coming down, but then it sat down as he got on the gas and delivered traction as well. So it's the fastest first sector we've seen so far. Russell continues to be a little bit adrift of his teammate, and a lot of drift on this lap. He's not hooked it up. It's a final look before Q3.
Antonelli, again, pops purple on this particular lap. He's hooked up there, isn't he, to state the obvious. He's very comfortable to open the lap, and the way he's got his car set up is enabling him to lay down the marker. A little bit slower in the middle sector on this particular lap than his previous best. So let's just see how he wraps up the lap.
Russell shows the Mercedes pace in the middle sector as well.
That first sector was miles off for George Russell in comparison to his teammate. So Russell chasing it, but fastest of anyone so far in the middle sector. Antonelli fastest in the first and third, and improves the benchmark time in this Q2 session. Can Lawson do anything about Gasly? Big gap by this stage of Q2, you have to say. Remember, the Haas team principal was saying that he didn't think that they could really get into Q3 without something dramatic happening to the Alpines. And there is a bit of a margin. Can anyone take a big leap forward when it counts? Lawson, Ocon, Hulkenberg, Behrman, and Albon and Sainz, the drivers currently in the drop zone.
So Gasly improves, but doesn't get ahead of Norris. So I was thinking Norris might end up in 10th and at the long range of being knocked into the drop zone by Williams, who almost does it. Well, it's still half a second, but he gets to the front of the pack.
Verstappen here. Yeah, sorry, Alex, Verstappen here on a hot lap, just finishing it out. So finding some performance as the track continues to evolve.
Four-time world champion over the line with that rotating rear wing element. And that is a very tidy lap time as we get to the business end of this qualifying hour. Charles Leclerc next over the line, goes into third, 0.2 of a second away from Verstappen. And Hulkenberg has been fighting it out of that final real corner of the circuit time and time again throughout this weekend. He gets to 11th now, and the margin was just too great to threaten the Alpine driver of Pierre Gasly out front. Lawson was originally 11th, but he can't find any improvement. He goes into P12. So Hulkenberg, Lawson, Sainz done as well. Piastri 0.2 of a second away. Hamilton not improving sector 1 or sector 2. And he'll be coming out of the corner now. Improvement in sector 3, but no improvement in terms of time.
Lawson was first to get the checkered flag in this session, as he was in Q1 as well. So their positioning on track is not allowing him to be one of the last to cross the line, which could make the difference.
Oliver Behrman in the Haas, young British driver, goes to 13th. He's the lead Haas on the grid, but again, this gaggle of Hulkenberg, Lawson, Behrman, Sainz, Ocon and Albon unable to challenge the Alpines. And Albon has gone over the line in 16th position. So that margin just in the end, too big to bridge. And it will be the Alpines, the Red Bulls, the McLarens, the Mercedes and the Ferraris battling for pole position.
Great job from Alpine once again this weekend. Colapinto up into Q3 ahead of Gasly. And there is that margin, 10th to 11th, there's enough space.
Hulkenberg, Lawson, Behrman, Sainz, Ocon and Albon, the drivers who are out. Max Verstappen fastest, very tidy lap for the Dutch driver at the end there. And Verstappen and Antonelli, the top two, then Leclerc and Piastri. Hamilton not finding improvements sector 1 or 2, had a personal best in sector 3 but didn't improve his position. And George Russell again around here, just not enjoying the configuration. Lando Norris not having an easy run, just one time lap that worked for him, having to run out of sequence in the middle and having to go at the end there. He finished 0.8 of a second away from Verstappen. Still on board with Charles Leclerc.
Well, he referenced turn 8 as maybe picking up some damage. So he was riding over the curb. There was a little jump there, so maybe he felt that picking up, kept it within track limits, but yeah, right on the edge of the curb there, would have hit the front of what they call the T-tray.
Yeah, leading edge of the floor there, taking the strike, having a bit of a spark out, and then the right-hand side of the floor. So he's correct to radio that in. They'll have a little bit of time to just have a quick check of it on the ground.
Yeah, it's frustrating for sure.
Well, we didn't hear the build-up to know what the punchline was.
An absolute corker.
Well, frustration for Albon, who finds himself in 16th. Ocon, Sainz, Behrman, Lawson and Hulkenberg being knocked out. We are building up to Q3 here at Miami. And time for some analysis before we get the pole position shootout. Let's check in once again with James.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Interesting session. Once again, different tire strategies from some of the teams, different deployment strategies, wind playing a part in it. Of course, track conditions always evolving in these qualifying sessions, especially on a street circuit. So let's take a look at the comparison between the top two. Max Verstappen on your left, Antonelli on your right. You see on the screen at the bottom, if the white line is above, that's Antonelli going faster. If the blue line is above, that is Verstappen. Coming through turn 1, 2, 3, pretty similar, but then different deployment strategies right out of the box. You see Antonelli on the button, using that power, opening up about a 2.5 tenth gain through that section, very even in the high-speed part of the lap, and then down into that tough turn 7, 8 that we've seen Antonelli be so quick in, and he does marginally beat Verstappen through there, but then different deployment strategy again. Now Max shoots back. He releases more of the energy on that run down to turn 11, gains back over 1.5 tenths, and you see a little bit of that super clipping as we head into the brake zone for turn 11 from Antonelli. Both cars looking pretty good. Max a little bit wide of the apex, actually. Antonelli doing slightly better, but throughout this low-speed section, whether it's just car balance, whether it's a little bit of how the energy is being used through here, you see the advantage goes to Max very quick in the low-speed section. Coming out of this turn 16, down the long straight, you see very even on the straight down here. Not a big gust of wind, not a big change in speed between the two. Deployment's only 5 1/1000ths advantage to Antonelli, but Verstappen's done such a good job through that middle sector to build up the gap. Antonelli a little bit later on the brakes through turn 17. Exits are pretty similar, and ultimately not enough for him to claw back the advantage that Verstappen had. A little over 1.5 tenths to Max. Very clean lap through that middle sector. And again, you see the difference in these deployment strategies. It's so fascinating to watch, guys. Can either one of these teams learn off each other, maybe learn off something that Ferrari or McLaren did? As we head into Q3, we will find out soon enough.
We certainly will. Thank you, James. Max Verstappen with a fine lap. And the time's reset, the top 10 shootout, which includes for the first time this season in the Grand Prix format, Franco Colapinto, who's rejuvenated with a car that is suddenly capable of Q3. He's found it, and he's been ahead of Gasly on a couple of occasions now. Lost out in the opening corners of the opening lap in the sprint, but finished that session in 9th position. So Colapinto will be hoping to out-qualify Pierre Gasly in the Grand Prix format for the first time this season.
Yeah, it seems that all you need is love, and by that what I mean is he headed off to Argentina to do a show run for Alpine, and a few 100,000 people, yes, I did say that correctly, a few 100,000 of his countrymen and women came out to support him. And, well, look, he's come back rejuvenated, and absolutely great performance from both Alpine drivers so far.
Yeah, he has been like a different man this weekend, hasn't he? Alpine, they've bought a few upgrades. Gasly's not absolutely dialed in with it, but Colapinto's obviously just turned up, having had the run back in his home country. These guys are unbelievable support in so many different venues, but they don't have their home Grand Prix at the moment. So if you go there as Franco, you come back feeling like a legend.
Ten drivers remaining in this session. A green light at the end of the pit lane for Q3. It's 13 minutes for the top 10 shootout this year, as we have a slight change with the extra team joining the grid in Cadillac, and we find ourselves looking at the Mercedes team. They seem in a much better place for Grand Prix qualifying than they did for sprint qualifying, and then therefore the sprint race. So they're in contention. Verstappen in the mix as well. There's Hamilton's brother Nicholas looking on, and his brother has a chance of competing 5th in the last session, but he did at one point have a quicker time than Charles Leclerc. Charles Leclerc 2-1 up in the Ferrari head-to-head when it comes to Grand Prix qualifying. We're just building the anticipation, no one going out there early. Track temperature now registered at 50 degrees, air temperature remaining at 33.
It feels like anyone's game at all, doesn't it, right now? So the two McLarens go reasonably early here. Make sure they get a clear bit of track and prep their tyres how they want without having to run behind anyone else.
Track temperature has dropped a couple of degrees. It's down at 50.7. So we are at, well, almost 5 o'clock local time. But I don't see any let up in the sunshine. But that will be... You can feel that as a driver when the track temperature comes down a couple of degrees.
Yeah, you can, and it can just bring the car into the right window as well. So if you've been struggling particularly for a bit of traction, a bit of overheating, suddenly those moments of sort of small oversteer, tiny corrections, bits of micro sliding don't happen, and it compounds around the lap as well. So it can bring a car completely to life, and then can bring a driver back into confidence, and a 3/10 deficit can become an advantage with just a little bit of track temp.
Lando Norris going out there early, had the error, turn 5 earlier on. Long turns of 7 that leads into 8. We saw Charles Leclerc over the curb at turn 8 earlier on. This is the driver who topped the last session. Extraordinary run at the end of last year for Max Verstappen, with his 10 podiums in a row, won the last 3 Grand Prix, well adrift in China and Japan, but could he be in the fight for pole position for the first time this season?
He's in the fight, isn't he? He's on the best lap so far in this qualifying session. And Red Bull made good strides. They seem to be continuing to make good strides all the way through this this session as well. And Max is there, and we know what he can do in Q3. When it comes to putting in 19 corners and dealing with variable wind conditions, a little bit of this, bit of track temperature changing, and putting it all on the line, he has got a very, very proven track record.
It feels, as we've got, well, less than 10 minutes of the session, everyone's getting into their build-up. It feels like it could go either way. It's about getting the perfect lap, would seem the obvious thing, but as close to the perfect lap. It doesn't seem that anyone's actually acing all of the sectors. There's a compromise in performance across the cars. So it's very difficult right now to put Alex on the spot to decide whether it's McLaren, Mercedes, or Red Bull or Ferrari that are coming away with pole position. But, you know, he's a brave man. He's going to tell us.
Thank you for that, DC. I'll tell you first of all that Oscar Piastri is attacking the racetrack. Kimi Antonelli seems to really thrive around here. Even yesterday, when Mercedes seemed on the back foot in sprint qualifying, they look good. He is the championship leader, trying to put things right after a difficult sprint race and a 5-second penalty. You'll notice that was an absolute non-answer.
I was hearing a long lean towards Kimi there.
But yeah, he's been consistent across the course of the weekend so far. Let's see whether McLaren look like the McLaren of a couple of moments ago.
Well, their first sectors are not good enough. They're a quarter of a second down once again in the first part of the lap. Now, there can be deployment differences out of turn 1, coming through between 3 and 4. Verstappen's actually slower than them, so Max has given up a little bit. It's Antonelli that is the quickest, and he is deploying a little bit more in that part of the lap. So can it come back to the McLarens and to Max further round?
So Verstappen at the top of your picture. Norris has come out of turn 16, furthest around the lap, and main frame for you. Oscar Piastri, the Australian driver, round the hairpin at 17. The Grand Prix winner here last year. And over the line we go with Oscar Piastri, 128.6 to beat.
Yeah, and looking like had a good opening to the lap is Leclerc in the Ferrari. He good, 2.5 tenths quicker than Verstappen.
And Norris goes half a second quicker than Oscar Piastri. McLaren 1-2 like it was in the sprint race, but there are other contenders here. And we're riding on board with one, fastest in the middle sector. Applying the power, hanging onto the car. Max Verstappen, does he go past the McLarens? You bet he does, by 0.02 of a second.
Leclerc's flying though. This is a really good lap. Antonelli's behind and going really quickly too.
Ferrari across the line with Charles Leclerc. Ferrari to provisional pole with Charles Leclerc. What can Lewis Hamilton do now? He's a few meters back. Tight to the line, he goes into P4, wide open, but it's Antonelli who's looking good. He's still got that final sector to get right, including the crucial braking zone of turn 17, the hairpin.
Yeah, got Colapinto ahead of him, but he's gone round the corner, so he's got a clean run to break it into the apex. Looks a little wide, but tidy on acceleration.
The driver chasing his third Grand Prix pole position in a row is 0.3 of a second ahead of Charles Leclerc. George Russell fighting the car around this circuit, not his favourite on the calendar, but can he make it? A Mercedes front row? No. It's P5 for Russell. Antonelli taking a big step forward. That's a big margin at this stage of the weekend.
Yeah, Russell nowhere in any of the sectors in comparison. So Antonelli has laid down the time. That's a pretty impressive gap to take into the final run.
Yeah, Alex's lean was pretty good earlier on.
Should have committed.
Yeah, I know. Too conservative. You've got to go all out in qualifying.
But in fairness, though, I did lay it up as is it Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull or McLaren, and that's exactly what we've got across the 4 first guys right now.
So Russell carries the 4-tenth deficit he had yesterday into today. Yesterday was 2nd and 6th, currently 1st and 5th, but look, half a tenth puts him on the front row. And that might now be what everyone else is playing for. Antonelli's time is really scorching. That's the best lap of the weekend. It's quicker than Norris yesterday, and the track seemed to be in better nick actually with less wind yesterday. So he's done a huge amount of heavy lifting towards this pole position, but Russell just has a little more to find to dig himself out of what is right now a tight spot.
Yeah, look, that gap just looks too much for him to threaten Antonelli, but you're absolutely right. It would just take a little bit of understanding as to how Antonelli's delivering that lap. He will have that data. He will see it when he goes in the garage. So it's not just looking at 3 sector times. He'll see exactly where the performance is being delivered.
He's been looking at it all weekend though, and it's just not quite coming to him. Sometimes you just have those days where you see what the other guy's doing and you're not feeling the love from the car. You're not feeling that you can commit in the same way and the car will react in the same way. That seems to be George at the moment this weekend. Similarly for Oscar Piastri. Oscar's really struggling and he's 9/10 away from the pace. McLaren look like they've lost a good chunk from yesterday into today. And Oscar, he only just made it into Q2, remember, but hasn't really found the flow in this session.
Yeah, unusual. Piastri in the Grand Prix format has been the lead McLaren when it's come to the end of the qualifying hour. For the Grand Prix format, he's been 3-0 up on Lando Norris so far this year. That just hasn't looked likely to happen across the course of the day. Worth saying, the word from the pit lane is that McLaren are trying to iron out a boost issue for Lando Norris that they saw on his first run. So the McLaren potentially with more in the locker for the final run, if they can get on top of that. Deploying the energy, such a big part of Formula One in 2026.
Well, maybe something more to throw at it. I have to say, when we jump on board and we look at the McLarens, they're not all arms and elbows hanging on to it. It looks tidy enough, just the lap time's not coming to them. Really impressed with Verstappen as well. Up in 3rd, And he had great race pace earlier on, was hounding Russell to the line, wasn't he? Got ahead of Antonelli with the penalty. So a top 3 start, he could even improve on that, but this is Max right back in the frame.
Yeah, this does feel very much a battle for who's second on the grid. There could be another drop in temperature and suddenly a bit of track evolution, but that was a mighty opening lap from Antonelli.
The championship leader by 7 points after the sprint race earlier on. He thought it extended his advantage in the championship, then had that 5-second penalty. It dropped him behind Russell and Max Verstappen. A great early effort gives him a 0.3 of a second advantage. It is very tight between Leclerc, Verstappen and Norris, along with George Russell in the battle for the front row. You don't want to point out that Antonelli's been struggling to get off the line because that just feels overly negative. But the front row could count for a lot here, certainly on the evidence of what we saw earlier on. It is worth saying that the team said it wasn't an Antonelli issue off the line. They said it was a glitch, and there's a few to iron out.
It doesn't really matter if it was team or driver. The fact is, he's made, what, 5 lousy starts now this year? 3 Grand Prix and 2 sprints. So if you're lining up in second, as this man provisionally is, or third or fourth, thinking I can lead the Grand Prix. So until Antonelli gets a good start, then the drivers behind won't start having that encouragement.
Yeah, it can start to become a thing. It becomes, I guess, like the yips in golf, that you line up looking in your mirrors rather than looking at the apex of the first corner.
Do you remember when Lando, I think his first 8 pole positions weren't converted into a lap 1 lead?
It's all we talked about for about a season.
So then you're second on the grid and you start to think, okay, well, I can lead into turn 1. And as soon as he got that sorted, it was fine.
Here's Kimi. Yep, it's definitely Kimi.
How do you say that word? D-W-O-A-H?
Perfect, DC.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely perfect. From one Kimi to another, he's using the vernacular, and he's currently the driver to beat at the end of Formula One qualifying. They keep getting it close out of the box. The top 2 drivers in the World Championship, CEO and team principal Toto Wolff looking on. Mercedes have a chance now. How close can Russell get? He's been on the back foot so far. Can he take all of that experience that he's accrued waiting for this chance for a championship challenging car and deliver his best lap when it counts at the end of Q3?
Yeah, big shot this one for Russell. Really could do with clearing a few spots and minimising what seems to be damage impending for George through the first sector. Now he's carrying a deficit there and he's made that up fairly well. So this is a good improvement for Russell so far.
Yeah, and he's getting that feedback. He's getting it from his seat of the pants, his hands, and of course the data, the lap time that's being updated constantly. So he'll know exactly where he is relative to his own lap time and of course his teammates.
Threading it around, George Russell moving on, 14 and 15. Looks like there's good compliance from the Mercedes.
And Antonelli's not going to improve. He's not going to have a chance. So that 27.7 will stay there in case anyone fancies sorting themselves out on a final lap and putting something together. And Russell's not miles away in this final sector.
Yeah, Antonelli not with the first sector that he needed at all. He is out of contention for improving. George Russell is improving. High-pressured braking zone, slightly wide through the hairpin at 17. Can George Russell climb that Mercedes to the front row? He comes over the line and it fades at the end for Russell, who seemed to be close 2/3 of the way through, but it fades. Fastest middle sector of anyone so far. Can Oscar Piastri unlock the pace of that McLaren at the end of Q3? The winner of the Grand Prix here last year, 0.7 of a second off. Where you deploy the energy is absolutely crucial. Lando Norris, can the world champion get to the front row now? No improvement for him. He's 0.7 off the original benchmark that Kimi Antonelli set on run number 1. Next up is Charles Leclerc, currently provisionally in for it. No improvement again. Can anyone find a best time at the end of the session? Lewis Hamilton now cuts the beam. He can't improve his position. Max Verstappen is our remaining contender.
And it's tidy enough for Max through 2 sectors. Let's see this one into turn 16. If he can get out of here, he's got half a chance. He has got half a chance.
Hello. It is an opportunity for Max Verstappen. The Ferraris, the McLarens, George Russell, they all faded in this part of the racetrack. That rotating rear wing back in position. One braking zone to go. Verstappen trying to climb from third to provisional pole, to actual pole, to the front row. What's it going to be? He gets to the front row. He's the one who could improve at the end. And Max Verstappen takes the Red Bull from the doldrums to the front row after a 5-week break. And Kimi Antonelli has 3 Grand Prix pole positions in a row. Sprint pole last year, Grand Prix pole this. Antonelli over 1 lap, the driver to beat.
Let's go, man. Woo! Feels good, man. Feels good. Thank you.
Yeah, well done, mate.
It feels he's just driving free. You know, the benefit of youth is you don't have all that baggage that maybe comes with experience. And he's at one with the car, he's in a happy place, and he's delivering. And that is a problem for George Russell.
This was a real coming-of-age weekend for him last year. Sprint pole, top 3 on the grid, and he's backing that up. Didn't need a second lap. The first one was still well clear enough to deliver a big blow there to George Russell.
3 Grand Prix pole positions in a row for the young Italian driver. Verstappen getting within 2 tenths. He was the only driver who couldn't. And then it was Charles Leclerc, no improvement at the end. Falls off the front row at the end of the session, but third, still a good place to start a Grand Prix in 2026. Norris in 4th, and then it's Russell in 5th, Hamilton in 6th. Oscar Piastri out-qualified by a teammate in the Grand Prix format of qualifying for the first time this season. Franco Colapinto making his first Q3 of the season and out-qualifying Pierre Gasly. Hadjar in 9th and Gasly completing our top 10 shootout. He was a second off the pace. And Antonelli showing the way through. Let's go on board with Oscar Piastri, who finished the session in 7th. Fighting it into the first turn of this 3.3-mile circuit. Never looked at one with the car throughout the entire hour.
Yeah, he lost a lot in that first sector, was pulling it back, but that was a fair amount of damage done there for Oscar. This is where Kimi bailed out of that final lap. He obviously decided he'd done something pretty heroic, and a little error like that, not worth keeping his foot in, and he didn't need to.
Max Verstappen pulling up. Antonelli was there very early because of the mistake in the first sector, and he had no chance to improve it. In the end, he didn't need to. Verstappen back on a Formula 1 front row for the first time this season, and making use of it. Big news for Red Bull, especially when they've developed their own power unit in conjunction with Ford this year. Kimi Antonelli has taken pole position for the Miami Grand Prix. And he looked exhausted after the sprint race. Quietly delighted after Grand Prix qualifying. Max Verstappen will start 8 meters behind him on the front row. Charles Leclerc will line up directly behind. He'll have the world champion Lando Norris next to him. And George Russell, I think he likes the location, but he doesn't like the configuration of this Miami International Autodrome. Lewis Hamilton will be in 6th, Oscar Piastri in 7th, Franco Colapinto, Isaac Hadjar, Pierre Gasly, the top 10. Hugs all round for Antonelli and his mechanics. His 2nd season of Formula 1, and he is getting the job done when it counts at the end of Q3. Debrief going on between Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc. They love a detailed conversation, those two.
Duking it out as to who could be the first man to challenge Kimi in case he can't get off the line tomorrow. Charles back in the top 3. We know how good those Ferrari starts are. Max, amazing turnaround for him and Red Bull. A thumbs up for him in 2026 as he got out of the car, but absolutely credit to them.
Yeah, Max Verstappen coming into this round behind Pierre Gasly in the championship standings. So 9th position for Verstappen in the early standings. The crowd have been entertained with the sprint race earlier on and Grand Prix qualifying. Let's now have a conversation with the top 3. Martin Brundle is speaking to Kimi Antonelli.
Kimi Antonelli, your third consecutive pole position. You know, Michael Schumacher and Ayrton Senna got their first 3 poles consecutively like that. Championship leader as well. What a great day for you.
Yeah, it's been an amazing day, you know, to be on pole again. You know, was obviously a difficult start of the day with the sprint, where it didn't go our way, but super happy with the recovery, and yeah, was a good quali. You know, obviously got a little bit too excited in that last lap of Q3, but the first lap was good enough, and I'm really happy with that.
Yeah, take us through that. I mean, it looked like an all-or-nothing attempt to lock the front brakes, and then you've got to do the rest of the lap thinking, oh, have I done enough already?
Yeah, I know. I was very stressed, to be fair, because you know, I was just waiting for everyone to finish their laps. But yeah, you know, at the end was, as I said before, was good enough, and really happy with that.
Now, I'm sure you've done some magic starts on the simulator, so there's one coming up tomorrow, I hope, for you.
Yeah, hopefully the magic one will happen tomorrow. You know, will be nice to not lose any positions, but yeah, we'll do our best. This weekend obviously has been a little bit more difficult for us, but you know, we're keeping all this together and we're maximizing the performance, so I'm very happy with that.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think Max is next up. What a turnaround, Max. What a turnaround. You must be pretty satisfied with that. What did you do to the car, or find something extra on the track?
Yeah, for me it's been 2 things. For sure the car's not been great in the previous races, but also from my side I never felt comfortable with the layout of the car. And I think over those last few weeks the team has been pushing flat out, you know, to try and bring upgrades to the car and making me feel more comfortable with a lot of things in the car, and it really pays off. I mean, I feel more in control of the car again, and then I can push a bit more. Then the upgrades are working, and yeah, I mean, to be on the front row is way better than I expected heading into this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly found some good time, and if you can get a good start, you've got a chance of controlling this race, and it might rain, of course, so out front like that is pretty critical.
Let's first start with a good start. I've not had a lot of them this year, so we'll try to have a look at that for sure, see what the weather will do tomorrow, but I'm already very happy with where we are. You know, from here, there's like light at the end of the tunnel, and we can just push on and try to close the gap further.
And your race pace, you're confident in that too?
Looked all right in the sprint. Once I was in clean air, of course, tomorrow, completely different day.
Well done. Charles, P3, happy with that? It was a tense qualifying and super competitive.
Yeah, it was on the limit. At the end of the day, we were just not fast enough today, and this weekend we brought a significant package which helped us, but there's still here and there where we need to improve a little bit. It was a very tricky qualifying. The wind was changing also slightly from runs to runs, so the car was behaving differently, especially in 11 and 12. There was massive differences between laps, so that was tricky to manage to put a lap together. The NP3 is a good starting position, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow.
You talked about when you rode the curb going out of turn A, did it do any damage underneath?
I didn't have any news from the team, so I think no, but I'll have to check. It was quite a big hit, but yeah, I don't think it affected massively the end result.
All to play for. What's in the Ferrari team about the weather tomorrow? What's the information?
Oh, it looks wet. It looks wet. Then how much when is still to be defined, but I think it will be a wet race.
Congratulations. Good luck tomorrow.
Excellent promotion of the race tomorrow from Martin Brundle and from Charles Leclerc. High fives all round at Mercedes. They did well to take a step forward after practice, sprint qualifying and the sprint race, and Kimi Antonelli is the new driver to beat in Grand Prix qualifying. The 19-year-old from northern Italy now has 3 poles in a row. And the question will turn, as it used to with Lando Norris, about how he gets off the line. Colin Farrell is presenting the Pirelli pole position trophy. One of about 100 celebrities in attendance this weekend. Always seems to be a popular one for the stars. And the star man of F1 qualifying holding his 3rd Pirelli pole position trophy in a row. Both chasing the same outcome as China and Japan, where he was the winner by the end of the Grand Prix distance. Did it on run 1. And Verstappen, the only driver to get within 0.2 of a second.
Yeah, well done, mate. Just need to curb the enthusiasm on that final lap.
Yeah, I was a bit too excited.
Kimi. Well done.
Thank you.
You know life's going to plan when you're being told off for being on pole position in Formula 1. Did it on run 1, didn't need run 2. And it's Verstappen versus Antonelli to the first turn of the Miami Grand Prix in 2026. I'll get you a full race classification in a few moments, present you the grid. It's Kimi Antonelli who's taken his third career pole in Formula 1. He'll share the front row with Max Verstappen. Charles Leclerc in third. And for all the action that we've seen in the dry, all the teams expecting a wet race tomorrow. Lando Norris in fourth, ahead of George Russell in fifth. Lewis Hamilton in P6. Oscar Piastri, his worst Grand Prix qualifying of the campaign so far. Franco Colapinto, the lead Alpine on the grid. His first Q3 appearance of the season. Hadjar and Gasly, 9th and 10th. Nico Hulkenberg in 11th, Liam Lawson, P12. Then it's Behrman ahead of Sainz. Then comes Ocon and Albon. Arvid Lindblad in 17th, and it's Alonso, Stroll and Bottas in 20th. Sergio Perez is in 21st position, and Gabriel Bortoleto had the brake fire and is in 22nd place. Well, my thanks to David Coulthard and to Jolyon Palmer. When it comes to Grand Prix qualifying, Kimi Antonelli is showing the Formula 1 field the way at the moment. Sprint pole last year, Grand Prix pole this. Can he win tomorrow? We'll see you when Formula 1 returns. Goodbye.